Cleveland to develop its pool of players. Now, we know Monty Gaddis has actually done quite a lot himself, hasn't he, with trying to get people playing, but it always seems small groups, and it's about bringing those small disparate groups together, which is really key for getting the gnarl off the ground.
I think so, yeah. I mean, I still think, yeah, again, I've not been impressed particularly by Cleveland, the Cleveland setup. I think it's all a bit of a jumble sale, and I remain sceptical. I would love there to be a strong American competition, but when you see names like Eric Perez attached to it, you have to treat that with a certain element of skepticism.
No, of course, yeah. Of course.
And it does seem to be a between all the different franchises, it does seem to be a bit of a collection of various oddballs. So I think there's quite a few in there that, names you've seen attached to various other bids and things that have before. So there's an element of it's the same people reorganised in a different way. That's the key to me. It's not a fresh set of people trying to get it off the ground.
No, but hopefully, the fact that these people keep coming back around shows their enthusiasm for the sport at the very least, and that's part of what you need to get these things off the ground, isn't it? So we wish them all well with hope, and we'll keep reporting on the storylines from it, because I think it's important to keep talking about it and being supportive of these ambitions, because it ultimately, if they do it right, if they get it right, we have a stronger sport for it.
Yeah, exactly. If it all comes off, it's a fantastic thing for us. However, it's with that note of caution that everything we invest into it's got to see some actual return somewhere. I think you can get carried away with it, and it becomes another white elephant to add to the rugby league safari park of things that could have taken off.
Yeah, and the return isn't necessarily going to be huge financial windfall for the sport. I think it's more
exposure.
Exposure and participation. But at the moment,
it's partly from a financial point of view as well. And just from an operational and logistical point of view, given the area the size of North America, it's not like it's able to pop along the M62. It's the area and all the transport and everything. Even in the regional conferences, is still going to be 12 times the travel that of here to Catalan. So
yeah,
it needs so many moving parts, so many things to go right, that it's a big feat to do it, and it's a big, it's almost a moonshot in terms of what they're planning.
But what we want to see is more return after 5 years in terms of an impact on the sport than just a few nifty pieces of merchandise that some of us might buy and stuff. Shall we talk?
Any news from your log boys? Have they done anything?
No.
yet?
Do you know what, the loggers? They haven't even reached out either to try and get
sign you up as an influencer.
Groundswell of support there. Yeah. So yeah, I'm pretty disappointed.
So does that mean the log is a log jam?
Shall we move on to another serious, long view looking story in the Am Finally, Tim?
Yep, Super League clubs, the Rugby Football League and Leeds Beckett University are combining for a research project to quantify the sport's head injury risks. The instrumented Mouthguard Project, catchy title, will use data from the guards which the majority of players already wear to assess the impacts of collision. It's intended to cover more than 1,200 players across men's and women's elite competition and academy levels. Different guards will be tested before the project starts in November 2021. Salford Red Devils have already started running their own Mouthguard pilot, as have Leeds Rhinos. This is the first game-wide study project launched to look at the extent of concussion and other head injury risks and how they might be managed. The study's main 3 questions to answer are: what are the head impact exposures across rugby league to quantify player load profiles? How does tackle technique and tackle height influence head injuries within rugby league? And what are the biomechanical mechanisms during concussion events in Super League? The data not only relates to tackled players, but also the tackler themselves, as collisions can be difficult to manage for both. So, I mean, it's, given all the things we've seen around concussion and the long-term side effects and just the general unknown of playing at this level of professional sport, a sport that's been professional for this long, it's much needed that we're doing, trying to get some data to underpin the decision-making.
Yeah, definitely. I think it's really, really important that we continue the kind of good work, because I think there's always, with concussion assessments, the HIAs that players go through during the games, and the rules around when they can return to play if they fail a HIA and that sort of stuff have been put in place now and have kind of been established. But you can become complacent around it. I think of two examples from just this weekend's Super League games where I think there was players who, to me, looked like potentially had picked up concussions who didn't go off for head assessments and continued on in the games. And we'll probably touch on them both when we get into the match reviews. But Brad Singleton for Wigan, I thought, had one, and SKD for Hull KR definitely looked shaken. I think there was a guy in the NRL as well who nearly stayed on, but they managed to pull him off after a couple of tackles in the Raiders Eels game, I think, as well. And so, it's noticeable every week. They've brought in the 18th man, haven't they, in the NRL now? So if two players get lost to concussion during the game, you can bring another player into your bench, the 18th man. So there's other steps being taken to kind of make sure no one does go through those shortcuts, and also that head injuries aren't going to have an impact on the other players left on the pitch and stretching them and their fitness and welfare and things. And this is just, I think, adds to it that we'll get a much better understanding, and we're getting the understanding into the right people as well, proper professional researchers.
And I think having that spread of players across the game and at different levels and into the women's game as well is quite interesting and quite useful, and it should provide a decent data set with that amount of players that are being monitored.
Yeah, and if they're looking at young players too, you can see as well the impact of build up over time if it's a long running project. So good stuff around. We'll do our customary shout out to the BBC Rugby League page, the totalrl.com website and loverugbyleague.com. They provide the stories for the most part. The RFL website as well a little bit too, for us to just comment on. So yeah, and no fan views this week, probably because none of the stories were that exciting until the one that was announced on the day of recording. So yeah, fair enough. But look out for the links to the Google form for fan views on the news to give us your views for next week's show. That's the news, Tim. Let's move on to the Super League match reviews. Super League match reviews time then. It was round 3 of the Super League after a break, an early season break for the Challenge Cup. And we start, as we normally do, with a Thursday night fixture. It was Leeds hosting Wigan at Headingley Stadium. It was 8-0 to the visiting Warriors at half-time. It finished 19-6 to Wigan. Chris Kendall was the referee. In terms of the stats, Wigan made 106 more metres, an extra break, and 2 fewer errors. Leeds made ground a better average game, but couldn't convert that into chances or points. Individually, Zach Hardacre, 1 try, 7 tackle loss, 184 metres. John Bateman, 173 metres. Liam Farrell, have I ever told you? Liam Farrell, 2 tries, 112 metres, 2 clean breaks for the expert centre. And Sam Powell, 1 try assist, 52 tackles, 14 of which were marker tackles. And then for the losing Leeds side, Tom Briscoe with 6 tackle busts and 159 metres. Jack Broadbent with 158 metres. His early season good form continued. Mikolaj Alejki, 44 tackles and 156 metres. So the big pole went both ways. And James Donaldson, 47 tackles. There was a note out of the disciplinary on this match today. Tim Jackson Hastings in the news for a caution for dangerous contact. I have no idea what the incident was because the write-ups don't explain things as well now as they used to. They used to say what player it was on and stuff, but no.
He's just a grub. You know, what do you expect being at Wigan?
Well, yeah, probably. Fan views, do you want to give us the first of those?
Yep, Carsten says, fair win for Wigan and Hardacre with shit conversions. Strong game from Alejki, if he would just play for Poland. Carl Eastwood with some strong signs, but he needs more time. Finally, if correct playing the ball with a foot and having cramp in the other leg isn't hard enough, getting a penalty is bullshit.
Well, it is hard to correctly play the ball, but he didn't correctly play the ball because his foot was fucking irrelevant when both his hands are on the floor. But anyway, no, I felt it was harsh on Mellor, that one, wasn't it? Even though the correct call was made by the referee to the letter of the law. The letter.
Yeah, that one dropped like a clang, didn't it, as it went in on commentary? Was it commentary or was it after the game?
No, it was on your game that it came up.
Right, yes. It all blurred into one, Thursday and Friday evenings.
Matt Speakman 20 said, could just read out my comments from last week. Slow start, class showed in the end. Hastings, Hardacre, Farrell, blah, blah, blah. Cannot wait to have Gildart, Manfredi and French back into this team. Apparently only Leeds had injuries in this game. Add Field and Marshall long term. And it's getting down to our emergency backups and we've actually done well.
Alan Shoddy and Mungo said, just to clarify, Hardacre's drop goal was partially disrespectful, therefore I partially approve of it.
It only partially went over as well. It was fucking ropey. Saying that, much better than anything that whole Warrington could offer.
It does seem to be a general theme that English players aren't doing very well with drop goals this season.
Yeah, I mean, to be fair, do we class Austin as English? Because he was pretty rank as well, weren't he?
Yeah, well, that's what, yeah. Poor Abdul. Missed a few.
Yes. Jen K said, another week, another win. This was a good competitive game, but we should have beat Leeds out of sight sooner if we had converted our tries. Zach looks more like the finished article each week, and Farrell, Smithies and Hastings all stood out for me. Next week against Cass will be a big test for us.
And Tom Andrews caps it off by saying, entertaining end-to-end game, but Christ did those commentators go on about Eastman, who was a passenger most of the game, to be expected. Everything he did was godlike, apparently. Wigan, the deserved winners.
Did he only turn into the first 10 minutes of the second half? Because the commentators were basically talking about how he was absent / a passenger for most of the first half of the game and in the half-time analysis. But the one thing is, because he's a big name returnee, he'll get talked about a lot, won't he? So it's kind of almost like you can't get away from the fact that they're going to talk about him, unfortunately, because they tend to go for like
they go for the story, don't they?
Yeah, the simple obvious story as well. Like the other big story that they're massively blowing up in this game is Zach Hardacre's form at fullback. I mean, he wasn't the man of the match in this game for me. I'd probably have him fourth best Wigan player in the game behind the others that Jen mentioned, actually. I'm not saying he was bad, and I'm not saying he doesn't look, really good. In fact, I'd say he's kind of... I don't know. I think he's looking in really good shape, and he's proving that he can still cover the ground and attack as a fullback, which I'd started to doubt ahead of this year a little bit. And his he's showing that his best position is still fullback, but I would strongly maintain that his best position for Wigan, with everyone fit, will still be centre. But he's playing really, he is playing really well. I'm not knocking that from him at all. I think some other notes I made on this game is the Briscoes, they put in hard yards for Leeds on exit set plays, and Luke Briscoe